Hello everyone, welcome to kitch&more. We are now in English 7, Quarter 1, Week 5. And today we're diving into the world of poetry, not just the rhyme and rhythm, but the deeper purpose behind each type. So, grab your pens, open your minds, and let's get started. Here is our learning competency. Identify one's meaning and purpose in selecting the type of literary text for composition. And our lesson objectives are define and differentiate the three main types of poetry: lyric, dramatic, and narrative. Analyze the author's purpose and point of view in each type of poetry, and identify one's own purpose in selecting a type of literary text for composition. What's your poetic voice? Let's start with a quick thought experiment. Imagine the last time you felt something really deeply, maybe a moment of joy or a little heartbreak. If you were to write a poem about that moment, how would you express it? Would you pour your feelings into a song-like verse? Reenact it with characters? Tell it like a story? Let's explore those options. Let's talk about poetry. What is poetry? Poetry is a special kind of writing that uses beautiful, powerful, and playful language to share ideas, feelings, or stories. It's like music made out of words. Sometimes it rhymes, sometimes it paints pictures in your mind, and sometimes it makes you feel emotions you can't even explain. Poetry isn't just about writing sentences, it's about making magic with words. Poetry is a form of literary expression that uses rhythm, imagery, sound devices, and carefully chosen words to evoke emotions, convey ideas, or tell stories in a creative and often structured way. Let's talk about the types of poetry. Poetry comes in many forms, but today we're focusing on the power of three: lyric, dramatic, and narrative poetry. Each one has a unique voice, structure, and purpose. Let's get to know them. Let's begin with lyric poetry, the voice of emotion. This type of poetry is usually written from a personal, first-person point of view. That means the speaker often uses I to describe their feelings and experiences. Lyric poems are short but powerful, like snapshots of someone's inner world. They're expressive and sometimes even musical in tone. And what's the main goal of lyric poetry? That is to convey emotions, whether it's joy, sorrow, love, or nostalgia. It's like reading someone's soul through rhythm and words. Let's look at a perfect example of lyric poetry. William Wordsworth opens his poem with "I wandered lonely as a cloud." This immediately tells us we're entering his personal space. The emotions, the imagery, the musical flow, they all work together to give us a vivid glimpse into the poet's emotional landscape. Let's talk about the common forms of lyric poetry. We have sonnet, ode, elegy, haiku, ghazal, and villanelle. Let's first talk about sonnet. A sonnet is a 14-line poem written in a specific rhythm called iambic pentameter, usually about themes like love, beauty, or time, and it follows a particular rhyme scheme. Let's look at this example. This is Shakespeare's Sonnet 18, and it is the first 4 lines. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a day. Let's break it down. What makes this a sonnet? First, a sonnet always has 14 lines. Right now, we're just focusing on the first 4 lines called a quatrain. That means a 4-line stanza. The rest of the poem follows the same style. Second, it follows a special rhythm called iambic pentameter. Each line has a 10 syllables and the beat goes like this: da-dum, 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 da-dum. Let's try reading one line with that rhythm. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Feel that beat? Like a gentle heartbeat. Third, it has a rhyme scheme. Look at the last words of each line. Day and May rhyme, and that's A and A. Temperate and date rhyme, and that's B and B. So we call this an ABAB rhyme pattern. Lastly, let's talk about the meaning. This sonnet expresses admiration. Shakespeare is basically saying, "You're not just like a summer's day, you're even better." He's praising the person's beauty, saying it outshines summer, which eventually fades. Now let's talk about ode. Ode is a formal emotional poem that gives praise or admiration. It can be about a person, an object, a feeling, or even something totally ordinary. Think of it like writing a heartfelt shout-out but in poetry style. And what do we do in an ode? First, we celebrate. We admire. And yes, we get a little dramatic. Now imagine this. You really love your favorite pen. It always writes smoothly. Never fails you during exams. You could say, "Hey, thanks, pen." But in an ode, you'd say something like, "Oh, noble pen, whose ink flows like the river of wisdom." Now that's some serious praise. Let's take a moment to listen to a few lines from John Keats' Ode to a Nightingale. Thou wast not born for death, immortal bird. No hungry generations tramp thee down. The voice I hear this passing night was heard in ancient days by emperor and clown. So what makes this poem an ode? First, it praises something or someone. In this case, Keats is praising a bird, and it's the nightingale. But not just because it sings beautifully, he's saying its song is eternal. It connects people across time, from emperors to ordinary folks. Second, odes use elevated emotional language. They sound fancy, poetic, sometimes even dramatic. You might hear lines like, "Oh, great mango, golden treasure of summer." No, we don't talk like that every day, but that's exactly what gives an ode its special emotional tone. And third, odes can be about anything. Sure, Keats wrote about a bird, but you can write about your comfy pillow, or your lola's adobo, even your phone charger. An ode is really just a chance to say, "Hey, I appreciate you," in the most poetic possible way. Now let's talk about a different kind of poem, one that's quiet, gentle, and full of emotion. It's called an elegy. An elegy is a thoughtful poem written to honor someone or something that has passed away. It often begins with sadness, but as the poem goes on, it slowly shifts to a feeling of peace or acceptance. It's like a poetic way to say, "Goodbye, but thank you." Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever lost something important to you? Maybe a person, a pet, or even your favorite hoodie. An elegy is a poem we write to say goodbye. But it's not just about being sad, it's about remembering, honoring, and healing. Think of an elegy as a soft hug made of words, a way to hold on while also learning to let go. Let's try a simple version of an elegy just to see how it works. You might write something like, "Dear summer break, why did you leave me so soon?" Or maybe, "Goodbye, favorite pen, you ran out of ink when I needed you most." So now that we've seen a simple version of an elegy, funny, serious, or heartfelt, let's look at how the professionals do it. Here's a famous example from Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard by Thomas Gray. Listen to how it begins. The curfew tolls the knell of parting day. The lowing herd weans slowly o'er the lea. The ploughman homeward plods in his weary way, and leaves the world to darkness and to me. What makes this an elegy? First, it talks about loss or endings. This poem was written for people who lived quiet lives and are now gone. It reflects on the end of the day, the end of work, and symbolically, the end of life. Second, it starts with sorrow. The mood is slow, quiet, almost like watching the sunset. It feels heavy, like saying goodbye. And third, it ends with a sense of peace. By the end of an elegy, the poet doesn't stay in sadness. They find some kind of understanding or acceptance. It's just like saying, "It hurts, but I'm grateful." That's the heart of an elegy. It's a poem that honors the past while helping us move forward. Now that we've explored the depth and emotion of an elegy, let's shift gears. Let's slow things down and enter something short, peaceful, and simple. Let's take a deep breath. And we're entering the calm and beautiful world of the haiku. A haiku is a very short poem that comes from Japan. It only has 3 lines and a total of 17 syllables. That's it, just 3 lines, like a tiny window into a moment. Haikus usually capture nature or small everyday experiences with a sense of calmness and simplicity, kind of like taking a photo with words. A haiku may be short, but it's powerful. It helps us slow down and notice the small things around us, like a leaf falling, the sound of rain, or even the gentle steam from your morning rise. It's poetry that reminds us even the quietest moments matter. Let's look at the magic formula for a haiku. The first line has 5 syllables. The second line has 7 syllables, and the third line goes back to 5 syllables again. Yes, you have to count your syllables, like a ninja counts his steps. This pattern is what makes a haiku feel just right. Ready to try one? Now that we know that haikus have magic formula, let's see it in action with a famous example. This one is by Matsuo Basho, a great Japanese poet. Here's the haiku. An old silent pond. A frog jumps into the pond. Splash! Silence again. What makes this a haiku? First, it has 3 lines with a 5-7-5 syllable pattern. Let's count together. An old silent pond. That's 5 syllables. A frog jumps into the pond. That's 7 syllables. Splash, silence again. Back to 5 syllables. So simple, but you can see it clearly in your mind, right? Third, it often connects to nature or feelings. Many haikus talk about seasons, weather, or quiet feelings, like peace, surprise, or even loneliness. That's the magic of a haiku, small but full of meaning. Want to try creating one for yourself? Please write it in the comment section below. Now that we've seen how haikus capture small moments, let's talk about the poem that's all about deep feelings, especially when you miss someone or something a lot. Have you ever missed someone so much you just wanted to write about it over and over? That's exactly what a ghazal is. It's like sending poetic text to someone you love, or maybe to someone who doesn't even know how much you care. A ghazal is a special poetic form made up of couplets. That means pairs of lines. These couplets express a longing, love, or deep emotion. What makes a ghazal really unique is that the same word or phrase repeats at the end of every second line, kind of like a chorus in a love song. A ghazal is made of couplets or two-line stanzas. The last word or phrase repeats at the end of every second line, and each couplet can stand alone but also fits into a bigger feeling. Let's look at an example of a ghazal. Read it with me and really feel the rhythm and emotion behind the words. Hither all her desires, thither my fires. Balancing both, burden became my life. In hope of love, I walked with wilderness. Breathe in, breathe out, mundane became my life. This poem is called Burden Became My Life by Aniruddha Pathak. Now let's break it down. First, couplets. The poem is made up of two-line stanzas. Each one is like a little standalone story. Next, the refrain or the repeating phrase. Can you spot the words that repeat at the end of every second line? That's right, it is the phrase became my life. Then, the theme of longing and emotional depth. Each couplet shares a piece of a heartfelt journey. There's love, loss, regret, and even a touch of hope. You can understand each couplet on its own, but together, they create a powerful emotional story. That's the beauty of a ghazal. Let's switch gears to a poem that loops and repeats, but in the most beautiful way possible. This is called a villanelle. A villanelle is a poetic form with 19 lines made up of 5 3-line stanzas and a final 4-line stanza. What makes it special is its repeating pattern. 2 key lines are repeated again and again throughout the poem. This creates a rhythm that feels both emotional and musical. The rhyme scheme, it goes like this: ABA, 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 AAA. Imagine if your brain kept singing the same 2 lines over and over, kind of like that one TikTok sound you just can't get out of your head. That's exactly what a villanelle does. It repeats 2 important lines to make you feel something strong. Let's look at an example of a villanelle to see how it works. Here's an example from a villanelle by Edwin Arlington Robinson. They are all gone away. The house is shut and still. There is nothing more to say. Let's read it slowly. Can you feel the hush? These 3 lines set the mood. It's like you walked into a home after a family gathering and it's just you. Everyone's gone. It's quiet now. Listen to these lines again. They are all gone away. The house is shut and still. There is nothing more to say. In the full poem, the first and third lines keep coming back, like someone thinking the same thoughts over and over again. So what makes this a villanelle? First is repetition. The first and third lines are repeated many times throughout the poem. Next is the musical rhythm. It feels like a lullaby or a gentle echo. And remember, it follows the rhyme scheme ABA. And finally, the emotion. This poem feels quiet and sad, like saying goodbye or remembering the past. That's the magic of the villanelle. Now let's move into dramatic poetry, a style that brings the stage to the page. Here's the twist. The speaker in a dramatic poem is usually a character, not the poet themselves. They speak in first person, but through the lens of someone else. And how does it sound? Like a monologue or even a dialogue. It's like you're hearing someone act out a scene. The length of the poem can vary, but what really stands out is the performance in the words. And what's the goal? That is to show conflict, tension, or a dramatic situation. It's still a poem, but it reads and feels like a performance. So, what does dramatic poetry actually sound like? Let's take a moment to step into the mind of a character, one who's feeling lost, broken, and full of emotion. These haunting lines comes from William Shakespeare's Macbeth. At this point in the play, Macbeth is facing loss, defeat, and the weight of everything he's done. He says, "Out, out, brief candle, life's but a walking shadow." Did you feel that? He's not just speaking, he's performing, and we, the audience, feel every word. That's dramatic poetry. It's poetry that acts, it's poetry that performs, it's poetry that makes us feel the drama right in our chest. Alright, now let's break down what makes dramatic poetry so special. First up is the character voice. In dramatic poetry, the speaker isn't just telling a story, they're living it. That I or me you hear, it's not always the real poet talking. It might be a king, a heartbroken lover, or even a villain. Or something surprising like a tree or a chair. Yes, in dramatic poetry, the speaker becomes a character. So when they speak, it's not just poetry, it's performance. Example, imagine saying, "I am a lonely night searching for my home." In that moment, you are no longer yourself. You are now the night, brave, tired, and full of dreams. You feel what the night feels. You see what he sees. That's the magic of dramatic poetry. It makes you step into someone else's shoes and tell their story from the inside. The second feature is monologue. That means only one character is speaking. No one's cutting in, no other voices, just one person speaking their thoughts out loud. Kind of like when you're in your room talking to yourself. Should I message them back? Why did I say that? I wish I could go back in time. But in dramatic poetry, the words are more powerful, richer with emotion, filled with dreams, fears, and confessions. A monologue gives us a secret glimpse into a character's mind, their worries, their hopes, their regrets, even their plans. It's like reading their diary, except that they're saying it out loud in poetry. Example, imagine a queen standing alone before a huge battle. She whispers, "Will I lead my people into ruin or into glory?" No one else is there, just her voice, her heart, and all the pressure she feels. That's the beauty of a monologue. It lets one voice pour out everything inside, almost like we're eavesdropping on their soul. Now, the third one is dialogue. That's when two or more characters are talking to each other, just like in real life. They can agree, disagree, laugh together, argue, or even make promises. This back and forth brings life into the poem. It's not just words on a page anymore. It's action, it's voices clashing, or hearts connecting. Dialogue makes a poem feel like a scene in a play. You're not just reading it, you're watching it happen in your imagination. It's drama, it's conflict, it's story, all through conversation. For example, first character, "Will you stay with me through the storm?" Second character, I will stay even if the skies break. See how it feels alive? It's like a mini play happening through poetry, full of feelings, actions, and voices you can almost hear. And now, the fourth feature of dramatic poetry is strong emotions. Dramatic poetry is all about big, bold feelings, not whispers, but shouts from the heart. The character might feel heartbreak, or rage, or fear, or even wild joy. And here's the thing, we feel it with them. Their pain becomes our pain. Their hope, we carry it too. These emotions aren't quiet, they're loud, clear, raw, and real. That's what makes dramatic poetry powerful. It doesn't hold back, it makes us feel. For example, a poem might say, "My hands tremble with anger, my tears fall like a river." You can almost see and feel what they are going through. You can almost see the shaking hands and hear the rushing river of tears, right? That's the magic of strong emotions. They pull you inside the poem. Now, here's the fifth feature of dramatic poetry, scene-like setting. A dramatic poem isn't just words on a page. It's like you're watching a scene unfold, just like in a play or a movie. There's always a place, a clear setting. It could be a castle, a battlefield, a lonely road, or a dark, creepy forest. And as the character speaks, you can almost see where they are. You can feel the space around them. That's the power of dramatic poetry. It pulls you into the moment and makes you part of the scene. For example, beneath the dark castle towers, I waited for the king's judgment. Immediately, your mind begins to build the scene. You can see the towering walls of the castle, feel the cold air, and almost hear the echoes in the hall. It's like you're right there with the character experiencing it all. Now let's talk about the sixth feature of dramatic poetry. It's vivid language. In dramatic poetry, words aren't just words. They're bright, bold, and bursting with life. Instead of just saying, "I'm scared," the character might cry out something like, "My bones are ice and shadows chase my soul." Did you feel that? Vivid language means using colorful, expressive words that show action and feeling all at once. It's not plain, it's not flat. It's dramatic, alive, and full of energy. That's what makes dramatic poetry so exciting. It paints a picture with powerful words and pulls you right into the character's world. Fear clawed at my chest like a beast in the night. Vivid language doesn't just tell you how the character feels. It shows you with powerful images that make the feeling come alive. You can almost feel the claws, hear the beasts growl, and see the darkness closing in. It turns simple emotions into something you can see, hear, or even touch. Alright, now that we've explored the key features of dramatic poetry, let's zoom out and look at the different types it can take. There are three main types you'll want to know. First, dramatic monologue, dialogue poem, and soliloquy. Each one uses these dramatic features in its own unique way, but they all bring that stage-like feeling straight to the page. Let's break them down and see what makes each one special. A dramatic monologue is a poem where one character speaks their thoughts, often revealing their inner feelings, emotions, and sometimes secrets. This character's speech is usually directed at another character or an audience, but we only hear their side of the story. Dramatic monologues are like telling your secrets out loud. Imagine you're having a conversation with yourself, revealing things that no one else knows. For example, in My Last Duchess, we hear a duke talking about a painting of his late wife. At first, it seems like he's just describing the painting, but as he speaks, we discover his jealousy and pride. He's not just telling a story, He's revealing what's hidden in his heart. He's showing us his inner world through his words. Next is soliloquy. A soliloquy is a type of dramatic speech where a character speaks alone, revealing their innermost thoughts and emotions. This type of speech is often used in plays and can be a way for the character to reflect or express their personal struggles. A soliloquy is like having a deep conversation with yourself. It's a moment of reflection where the character is alone, maybe even struggling with their own feelings. Now, you might wonder the difference between dramatic monologue and soliloquy. A dramatic monologue is when one character speaks to someone else who's present but silent. So, the character is revealing their thoughts or feelings through that conversation, like a speech to an audience but within the poem's world. A soliloquy, on the other hand, is when a character speaks their thoughts alone. No one else is listening. It's like overhearing their private inner voice, a direct window into what they're really feeling and thinking. For example, in Hamlet's famous speech, "To be or not to be," Hamlet is thinking about life and death. He's asking himself whether it's better to keep living with all the pain or to end it all. It's emotional, reflective, and very powerful. It lets us hear the raw, real thoughts of a character that they might not say aloud to anyone else. Next, let's have dialogue poem. A dialogue poem is a poem where two or more characters are speaking to each other. It can show different perspectives or emotions with characters responding to each other's words. This type of poem often mimics the feel of a conversation or a debate. A dialogue poem is like a conversation in poetry. It's when two or more characters are talking back and forth. Imagine your best friend saying something and you reply just like that, but in poetic form. For example, the owl and the nightingale. The owl says, "Let us leave this place and wander not far." And the nightingale, "No, I shall sing, for the land is bright and fair." In The Owl and the Nightingale, the owl and the nightingale are having a discussion about their different lives. They each express their views about the world, and the poem shows us their different personalities. It's almost like a short play where characters debate, argue, or share opinions in a poetic style. And now the last but not the least type of poetry is the narrative poetry. Think of this type of storytelling in poetic form. It can be told from a first-person or third-person point of view and often includes a clear plot with characters, setting, and conflict. These poems are usually longer because they unfold over time, just like a story. And what's the purpose? That is to take readers on a journey from beginning to end. For example, Tennyson's The Lady of Shalott is a great narrative poem. It tells a detailed story of a woman living in isolation on an island, cursed to only view the world through a mirror and weave tapestries based on her reflections. This narrative poem is filled with imagery, mystery, and emotion. The use of storytelling draws us into a whole different world, like a fairy tale wrapped in rhyme. This time, let's talk about the key features of narrative poetry. A narrative poetry has a clear plot or storyline. It follows a sequence of events from the beginning to the end, just like a short story. The plot may involve conflict and resolution. For example, in the Odyssey by Homer, we follow Odysseus' long journey home after the Trojan War. His adventures and struggles, from encountering monsters to navigating storms, make up the plot. Next is narrative poetry features characters that play important roles in the story. These characters may be heroes, villains, or even ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances. For example, in the Ballad of the Harp Weaver by Edna St. Vincent Millay, we meet a mother who weaves a harp for her son, and through her sacrifice, she became a symbol of love and devotion. Next is the setting. The setting of a narrative poem provides background information where and when the story takes place. The setting often enhances the mood of the poem. For example, in by Edgar Allan Poe, the midnight setting and the lonely room set a mysterious and eerie tone that makes the raven's visit all the more unsettling. Next is the point of view. The point of view determines the perspective from which the story is told. It could be first person, where the narrator speaks directly as a character in the story, or third person, where the narrator is an observer of the events. In the Odyssey, Homer uses third-person omniscient narration, allowing us to follow Odysseus' journey and his interactions with gods, monsters, and humans. The next feature is narrator. The narrator is the voice that tells the story. The narrator can be a character in the story or an outside observer who describes the events and thoughts of the characters. For example, in The Raven, the narrator is the speaker who shares his internal emotional turmoil. He speaks directly to the reader, guiding them through his growing despair. Next feature is the theme or moral. Many narrative poems contain a moral or theme, a message or lesson that the poem aims to convey. The theme might involve topics such as love, loss, courage, or faith. For example, in the Ballad of the Harp Weaver, the theme revolves around the sacrificial love of a mother for her son, showing how her love transcends all hardships. Now let's talk about the types of narrative poetry: the epic, ballad, lay, and idyll. Let's start with epic. An epic is a long narrative poem that focuses on a heroic figure or legendary events. It often deals with heroic deeds, battles, and the struggle between good and evil. Epics are usually grand in scale, and the hero often goes on a journey or faces great challenges. For example, the Odyssey by Homer, the poem follows Odysseus' long journey home after the Trojan War, encountering numerous challenges from gods, monsters, and other dangers. For example, in Filipino, Biag ni Lamang is an epic and a perfect example of a narrative poetry. It tells the exciting story of a hero with super strength and magical abilities to avenge his father's death and rescue his father's head from the headhunters and get revenge. This epic is full of action, challenges, and Filipino values, making it a great example of how narrative poetry can tell an unforgettable and larger-than-life story. The second one is the ballad. A ballad is a short narrative poem that often tells a tragic story. Ballads typically have a song-like quality, and they are usually written in a simple, repetitive stanzas. They often depict dramatic events such as love, death, or adventure. For example, the Ballad of the Harp Weaver by Edna St. Vincent Millay. This ballad tells the tragic story of a mother's sacrifice for her son, weaving a harp out of her own hair as a symbol of her love and devotion. Next is a lay. A lay is a short narrative poem often associated with romantic or chivalric tales, typically set in a medieval context. The subject matter usually includes adventures, romance, and chivalric news. For example, The Lay of the Last Minstrel by Sir Walter Scott. The lay tells the story of romantic and heroic adventures set in a medieval landscape, complete with knights, ladies, and magical elements. Next, we have idyll. An idyll is a short narrative poem that describes idealized or romanticized rural life or pastoral settings. The tone is usually peaceful, idealistic, and focused on the beauty of nature or the simple pleasures of country life. Ideals may also explore idealized relationships and ends. For example, Idylls of the King by Alfred Lord Tennyson. This collection of poems tells the story of King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table, focusing on themes of chivalry, honor, and beauty of the Arthurian legend. Though it explores a heroic and legendary story, the poems maintain a focus on idealized ideals of virtue and noble character. Now let's talk about the author's purpose. What is an author's purpose? Have you ever wondered why poets write poems? It's not just to make things rhyme or sound pretty. Poets write with a purpose, a reason they pick up their pen or laptop and create something magical. Let's dive into the 5 big reasons poets write, explained in a fun and simple way. First, we have to express emotions. Poets have big feelings. Just like you might feel super happy when you win a game or really sad when you miss a friend, poetry becomes their special diary where they pour their feelings out. For example, a poem about the excitement of a first crush, the pain of losing a pet, or the thrill of seeing fireworks light up the sky. Fun tip. Think of poetry like a rainbow of emotions. Each color is a different feeling the poet wants you to see and feel. Imagine, if you could write a poem about your mood today, what would it be? The next purpose is to tell a story. Not all stories are long like novels. Some can be short and sweet, like a quick adventure told through poetry. Example, a poem about a knight saving a dragon instead of fighting it, or a lost puppy finding its way home. Here's a tip. Story poems are like mini movies in your mind. Close your eyes and watch the scenes the poet paints with words. Think about what is the shortest story you could tell in a poem. Next, the third purpose is to persuade. Sometimes poets want you to believe something, feel something strongly, or take action. They don't just tell you, they make you feel it deep in your bones. For example, a poem convincing people to protect the earth, to be kinder to others, or to dream bigger. Here's a fun tip for you. Poetry can be like a superpower that changes minds without shouting. It uses beauty, emotion, and clever words. Here's the challenge. What would you write a persuasive poem about? Saving animals? Stopping bullying? The next purpose is to inform or explain. Believe it or not, poetry can also teach you things. Some poets explain how something works or tell you facts in a fun, creative way. For example, a poem about the life cycle of a butterfly, the secrets of outer space, or how seasons change. And here's a tip. Imagine learning your science lesson through a poem. Wouldn't that make class more exciting? So try this. Write a quick 2-line poem about something you learned this week, and then write it down in the comment section below. Then the last purpose is to entertain. Sometimes the poet just wants to make you smile, laugh, dance, or even cry, just like your favorite movie or song. For example, funny poems about clumsy clowns, silly talking animals, or magical lands where everything is made of candy. And here's a fun tip for you. Poetry can be like going to a carnival full of surprises, laughs, and wow moments. So here's a fun idea for you. Share a funny or wacky poem with a friend and see who laughs first. Now that we've explored some fascinating types and features of lyric, dramatic, and narrative poetry, let's do a quick recap. Think of lyric poetry as emotional expression. dramatic poetry as a scene on stage, and narrative poetry as a poetic storybook. Each type serves a different purpose and speaks in a unique way. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful journey through types of poetry. If you enjoyed this lesson, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with your classmates and friends. And of course, subscribe for more fun and inspiring lessons. And if you want a copy of these, please just direct message me on my Facebook page, Kitch&more. See you next time. Bye!